Hello, everyone. Just checking. I hope everything is okay. I hope my audio is okay. Let me try to do some tests. All right. I see Linus has joined. Thank you, Linus, for joining. Linus says, "Hello, I've been waiting for this session to interact with our mentor in learning all what FastAPI can offer." Wow, I'm really happy you're here. And yeah, let's get to know what FastAPI is all about. Yeah, so like I mentioned recently, I I was trying to uh, get to know about other frameworks in the Python community, and when I traveled one time to meet my colleagues from our organization, one of them was so much talkative about FastAPI, and he showed me several things he was working on uh, concerning FastAPI. Rather, not showing him, but actually he was talking about them. And then I got to see that, yeah, this is really some cool framework. So yeah, out of curiosity, this is now me looking at FastAPI for myself, okay, to see if the claims are true. And of course, if it's that great, there's a project I want to build very soon, but that's after learning this, okay? And of course, you might be thinking, why are you not using AI? Okay, I do not use AI right now. I just want to understand what the whole framework is all about, the features. Then later, when I'm uh, good at it, okay, when I understand everything about FastAPI, then I can use AI to quicken my learning, okay, to quicken not just my learning, but to quicken like the task. If I'm building a task using FastAPI, then I can use AI to generate code very fast. And then because I have knowledge about FastAPI from their documentation, I can then review the code that AI has given me. Yes, Linus, thank you for confirming that I'm audible. Yes, Daniel, how are you doing? Ashraf, how are you doing? I hope you're all doing very great. So let's start. So like you see, I have here the FastAPI documentation. Then on the other side, I have VS Code. So what I need to do is now to probably start, of course, by looking at the documentation. If you look at, of course, it's their homepage, and they have this link documentation, the link to the source code. But I guess if you click on this one, it will take you to the same page. And of course, this one is for their GitHub. So if I go to this menu and I click on Learn, okay, they say here the introductory sessions and tutorials to learn FastAPI. You could consider this a book, a course, the official and recommended way to learn FastAPI. Okay, I was expecting something more here. Let's see, what do they have? Okay, this is the menu, I think, on Learn. So here you see they have Python types intro, they have concurrency, async, await, they have environment variables, virtual environments, they have a tutorial, the first steps, path parameters, query parameters, request body, and so on. If we move back, let me see, they have an advanced user guide. Of course, I'm not advanced. That's very obvious. I don't need this. Let's see. They have FastAPI CLI deployment. Of course, it's too early to deploy, okay? This is something we can do at the end when I've learned. Then they have the how-to recipes. Okay, I also see GraphQL. Yeah, this is actually something I would want to really learn, GraphQL, and yeah, everything else. So yeah, what do you think? Where can I start from? Should I start from Python types intro? Actually, fun fact, I've been writing a lot of Python code and working on so many projects, but we rarely use Python types intro. And my friend told me in FastAPI, they actually use types. So maybe it will be nice for me to have a recap on Python types, a recap on maybe concurrency, async await, environment variables. I feel like I already know this. Maybe I can maybe have a look at this, and maybe after that, go to the tutorial guide. Wait, this is quite a lot. I thought I would come to the first steps today, but it appears probably I may need another stream a number of streams for this. Okay. Let's probably first go back here. Python types intro. Okay, let me see the chat. Yeah, Daniel, I actually remember who you are. Thank you for joining. Yeah, how are you doing? How is your backend journey going? I'm really interested to know how people I have mentored and people we have been with at ALX, how they're doing and what uh, they're doing. Ashraf says maybe I first do a review. So let's start from Python types intro. Okay, I want to follow this documentation in order from the intro, concurrency. Maybe you can look at environment variables a little bit, virtual environment. Then we go to there, maybe to the user guide and to see the first steps. Because I assume whatever is here could be really simple, but I want to have a solid understanding, not just to jump into things and assume I'm okay. So let's go back and go to Python intro types. Okay. And if my internet breaks, please pardon me. Let me first of all confirm that all my sources are working, so that in case of a break, I can switch between internet sources. Let's see. Okay. Daniel says it's going good. I landed a job at a remote company as a Python developer for 4 months. Wow. That's very nice. Yeah, Daniel, it's time for you now to send my compensation. That's really nice. This is what makes me happy. Okay. When you interact with people and then they go on to succeed in life, but in this success that they're having, you've had even just a 0.001% impact on them. It's what brings, I think, real satisfaction. So at your job, Daniel, make sure you teach people, okay? You pass on the knowledge. Trust me, you'll find it very satisfying to see that someone you've taught something, someone you've shared with knowledge is later successful in their life, and they're using it to better their life. Because I know once you see that your life is better, and Linus and all of you who are here, then also the life of the people around you improves, okay? And if the life of those who are around you improves, you improve the lives of those who are who are around them also. Yeah. So wow, I'm really happy. All right, let's go. You know, many times when we're in these kind of sessions, you forget that you're supposed to be coding, then you get into conversations. But it's really nice to know. Yeah, let's continue. So Python types intro. Yeah, so here they say Python has support for optional type hints called annotations. I don't know if you can see this. Let me try to make it zoom in a little bit so that you can see. Then they say these type hits or annotations are a special syntax that allow declaring the type of a variable. By declaring types for your variables, editors and tools can give you better support. This is just a quick tutorial or refresher about Python type hints. It covers only the minimum necessary to use them with FastAPI, which is actually very little. I mean, I'm happy to know this, okay? Because I just want a refresher on what exactly will be required for FastAPI. I don't need to know everything else. And of course, like you know, in the world of programming, you can't learn everything at once. Later on, you start building, okay? Building on to your knowledge. All right, so it says FastAPI is based on all these type hints. They give it many advantages and benefits. But even if you never use FastAPI, you would benefit from learning a bit about them. Yeah, and I agree with this actually, because you might be working maybe, let's say, with Flask, okay, in a Flask project, but because it's Python and Flask is a Python, of course, framework, they might have type hints, okay? You may be working with, let us say, Django project and they're using type hints. Or maybe you find someone has written just probably their own framework, but using type hints. So yeah, I agree with this point. Says if you're a Python expert and you already know everything about type hits, skip the next chapter. I don't want to fall for this. You get, there's this feeling. I don't know if you guys already get this feeling. Many times when I'm like doing something, even when I've studied it, is that thing that tells you, but man, are you sure you know? Okay, I think it's like can I call it like a version of imposter syndrome that tells you, I want to, okay, I want to still, I don't think I'm really good enough. But anyway, let's go through it. Let us see the motivation. Says, let's start with a simple example. So they have a function, okay? I can just copy this function. So here in VS Code, I'm going to create a new Python module. I'll call it main.py. Then let me try to make this a little bit bigger. And okay. So basic function, okay, called get full name, takes into arguments, so has two parameters, first name, last name, and then it builds the full name by changing the cases to title case for the first name and last name. Then there's a concatenation here. Okay. Let me undo that, and then we return a full name, and of course they print this. So if we run, of course, this is we know the result. Okay, we get John Doe as expected. So you can see that the J and the D are title case. So nothing to do with FastAPI, just simple program. Of course, they tell us what it outputs. Then they say the function does the following. Says it takes a first name, converts the first letter of each one to uppercase with title method, like we already know, concatenates them. Oh my God, I'll bite my tongue trying to say concatenates. And then after that, yeah, I think that is it. So they're talking about editing it. Okay. They say it's a very simple program, but now imagine you are writing it from scratch. At some point, you would have started the definition of the function. You had the parameters ready, okay? But then you have to call that method that converts the first letter to uppercase. Was it upper? Was it uppercase? Was it first underscore uppercase, capitalize? I don't know if you guys get what they're trying to say here, okay? You're writing this from scratch, but you want to call a method that converts the first letter to uppercase. But I think many of us have been in this scenario, okay? You don't know what it's called, okay? And actually, if someone told you it is called capitalize, you may say, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Looks like a correct English word. If you say first uppercase, you'll be like, yeah, actually, this is most correct. First uppercase should be one responsible for converting the first letter of a string to uppercase. But you'd be wrong. Is it uppercase? Is it upper? Then they say, then you try with the old programmer's friend, editor, autocompletion, or AI, whatever. And you type the first parameter of the function, first name, then a dot, and then the control space to trigger the completion. But sadly, you get nothing useful. Yeah, I think what they're trying to say is this. Let me remove all this code. Okay. So you want to convert the first letter of the first name to uppercase. Then you say dot. Okay. But then you're not getting what? Proper autocomplete. Of course, you're seeing this because of what I have here, okay? The Copilot AI thing. But ideally, what if it's wrong, okay? You wouldn't know. So let's continue. Let me check the chat. Okay, Daniel says, I deserve more. Daniel says they still have a lot to learn. Yeah, we all have a lot to learn. All of us, okay? We always have a lot to learn on our journey. Look at me now. I'm now a beginner in this. But of course, concepts, like I've always told you, apply everywhere. Okay. Time comes and understanding certain things becomes very easy because of what you learned in the past. But it's a good thing to have, to always want to learn. The more you learn, however small it is, later you become better and you get ahead of so many people. So they're saying the solution, of course, I think is, like we might have guessed already, is adding types. So they say, let's modify a single line from the previous version we will change exactly this fragment, the parameters, to the function from. Yeah, so they're changing this to this, okay? So it's basically having a full colon, then the type, of course, str, that means, of course, a string, then last name, full colon, then the type, okay? Very easy. Actually, I think after looking at these types, I think we should go to the tutorial and do some basic stuff before maybe in the next stream I go back to concurrency and the like. Okay, then say that's it. There, those are type hints, of course, they are. Now, because we have added this, they are saying, let's read this, because now you see the method has been changed. Maybe let me just copy this line of code and replace it there. Okay. Oh my God, I need to disable AI. Sometimes I just don't like auto-completion when I'm learning, okay? I just want to learn, okay? And really learn. So, okay. So that is it. Then they are saying that is not the same as declaring default values like would be with saying first name equals to John and last name equals to Doe. It's a different thing. We are using colons, not equals, okay? This up here. They're using a full colon and not an equal sign. They're not saying first name equals to str. It is first name, full colon, str, meaning the type of first name is a string. Str is like, of course, the short form for string or something of the sort. Then we continue saying, and adding type hints normally doesn't change what happens from what would happen without them. But now imagine you are again in the middle of creating that function, but with type hints. At some point, you try to trigger the autocomplete with control space. Okay, let's try and see. If I come to line 3 and I say first name, okay, so all of a sudden I've become very slow. Dot. Yeah, I think this is what they're talking about. So now the editor is giving us this autocomplete because it knows that first name is a string. So if someone uses the dot syntax, I will show them all the methods that the string class has. So you see, capitalize, case fold, center. Yeah, it makes clear sense. This is the goal actually of this. But I think the other advantage, of course, is documentation. Someone will look at your code and will know that, okay, this function takes 2 parameters, but the arguments must be strings. Okay, so I wouldn't pass in a number, a float, or a date, or something like that. Okay. Yeah, this is actually cool. So let's continue. Then it says with that you can scroll, seeing the options until you find that one that rings a bell. Of course. Let's continue. So more motivation. Check this function. It already has type hints. So this one is called get name with age. It has 2 parameters, name and age. So name has str annotation meaning a name. Age has int, of course, meaning an integer. And of course, they're trying to add saying name plus age. But then they're saying because the editor knows the types of the variables, you don't only get autocompletion, you also get error checks. And this is cool. Let's copy this and see if my editor agrees with them. Okay. Looks like mine is working well. Okay. If I do this, we do then I say plus age. Actually, did you see that? Are you seeing this? The AI autocomplete is actually trying to convert age to a string, which is actually smart because it already knows that age is an integer, okay, from the type hint here. So saying st this is old plus age would cause an issue, okay? Look at what they're doing. They're trying to call that magic method underscore str underscore to convert age to a string. Yeah, I think this is the advantage of having the type hints. Okay. But I'm failing to generate that this, I think this warning here saying unsupported operand types for str and int. Any ideas? Friends, I need help. What could help me? If you look at this, do you see this statement or this text in the bracket? It says mypy, which means they've configured their editor was configured with mypy, and I don't have that set up here, which is okay. So mypy is like a linting tool, okay? But I like that, of course, AI already told us what was wrong. Now let's continue. They say now you know that you have to fix it and convert age to a string with str age. And of course we had this, so I'll just copy this piece and paste it there because I'm the lazy type today. Okay, and of course we already talked about this when I showed you the AI thing. Then of course now declaring types. They say you just saw the main place to declare type hints as function parameters. This is also the main place you'd use them with FastAPI. Then they say simple types, you can declare all the standard Python types, not only str, meaning for strings. It says you can use, for example, int for integer, float for floats, of course, bool for boolean, bytes for bytes, of course. And I have this example here, okay? If I can copy it, remove this other code and paste. Linus says you can only concatenate strings. You cannot combine string and integer. Yes, that's correct. Very, very correct. So let's see. Let me expand this. So yeah, I think this is obvious. Item A is a string. Item B is an integer, a float. Item D is a boolean. And item E is a handles bytes. And of course, we know what this is going to be. Okay. Yeah, this I think pretty good to see. I wouldn't say I had forgotten this, okay, but of course, if you had forgotten, then this is a good refresher. Then they're saying now we have another part: generic types with what? Generic types with type parameters. They say there are some data structures that can contain other values like dict, list, set, tuple. And of course, we know dict is for dictionaries. And the internal values can have their own type too. These types have internal types called generic types. And it's also possible to declare them even with their internal types. To declare those types and the internal types, you can use the standard Python module typing. It exists specifically to support these types. Okay, because you can have maybe like a complex object you want to represent. So you can use the typing module. I think that's what they're actually talking about. Then here, I think they're talking about new versions of Python. It says the syntax using typing module is compatible with all versions from Python 3 to 3.6 to the latest ones, including Python 3.9. Let me check the Python version I'm using. Python, is it minus version? When is the last time you ran this command? I feel like it was probably 4 months ago when I was working with the current cohort at work. So yeah, mine is 3.12. Then they say, as Python advances, newer versions come with improved support for type annotations. And in many cases, you won't even need to import and use the typing module. Okay, that's good to know. And if they can work on like 90%, that would be great. If you can choose a more recent version of Python for your project, you will be able to take advantage of that extra simplicity. In all the docs, there are examples compatible with each version of Python. Of course, when there's a difference, says for example in Python 3.6 means it's compatible with 3.6 or above, including of course from 3.6, 7 to 10 etc. In Python 3.9 means it's compatible with 3.9 and above. Okay, you cannot say you have Python 3.9 and expect compatibility with something below it like 3.8 or 3.7. That wouldn't work. Okay. If you can use the latest versions of Python, use the examples for the latest version. Those will have the best and simplest syntax. For example, Python 3.10 plus. So we have here two examples, okay, when dealing with adding annotation to a list. In Python 3.8, you have to import, okay, from typing, import list. Is this something which can be, let me see, because I might have to maybe, okay, looks like it's already there. I thought I have to maybe install it from typing, import list. Okay, so they have that. This was 3.8, but in 3.9, you don't have it. We don't need it. You see, they say in 3.9, just simply declare the variable with the same colon syntax, and as the type, put list. As the list is a type that contains some internal types, you put them in square brackets. Yeah, I think this is actually really cool and makes it easier. So let me paste it here so we see the difference in our editor. So yeah, we have items of type list, and then these square brackets, what you put in the square brackets simply informs Python of the data type of the members of that list. So in this case, they will be strings only, yeah, which is good. If you look at the one of 3.8, let me copy the same thing and paste it just above. Okay. So with this, you have to import list from typing. But with newer versions, no need for that, which I think is, yeah, really cool that they're building this into Python core. Okay, then there's some info here saying those internal types in the square brackets are called type parameters. I guess we already knew that. In this case, str is the type parameter passed to lists. Yeah, we knew that. Then we go, says that means the variable items is a list, and each of the items in this list is a str or a string. Then they have a tip saying if you use Python 3.9 and above, you don't have to import list from typing. You can use the same regular list type instead. And of course, by doing that, your editor can provide support while processing items from the list. Yeah, I think we are now good with this, and we already know that. So if I say items dot, you see, we get all the methods that are related to a string. If I say item int, okay, if I change this to an integer, then I come back here and I say item dot. You see, all the methods have changed. Okay, we get now methods associated with integer or integers and not strings. Yeah, this is the real advantage of by the using types, which is really, really cool. Okay, so I'll just remove all this. We don't need that. Okay, I can't wait to really get done with this stuff. And first of all, go the other side. I'm getting impatient. I want to create an API in FastAPI, guys. Okay, and at least a hello world today. Okay, before I run out of time, I need to do a hello world, a basic one. Yeah. So how is it going so far? Is anybody confused? Do you want a clarification on anything? If I'm rapping, if I'm not rapping. Okay, then they have the same thing for tuples and sets. Okay, 3.8, you have to import set and tuple. Okay, and look, this is how it looks. This was a lot of work actually, kind of. And with 3.9 above, you see, we have what? Tuple with the native types. Yeah, which is, so this is the new way of working, okay? Instead of this other one. This is a good thing of having people who are actively supporting a language. So look at this. Tuple, set, okay? Small differences, but yeah, I think it's cool that you don't need to import something just to add a type, okay? So let's have that off. Then let's move on, okay? They say this variable items t is a tuple with 3 items, an integer, another integer, and a string. We know that. Then it says the variable items is a set, and each type of the item is of type bytes. Okay. Then now they go to dictionaries. Okay. To annotate, to add a type for a dictionary, in Python 3.8 plus, you use dict, but 3.9 plus, you use simply dict with the lowercase, and it's already inbuilt, okay, into Python core. You don't need to import it from typing. Okay, and I see the variable prices. The variable prices is a dict. The keys of this dict are of type str. Okay, and the values of this dict are of type float. Yeah, so this makes sense. Oh yeah, I get it actually. If you look at it, the first value, okay, the first annotation in the square brackets is for the keys. Okay, then the next one is for the types. And I think this first one should always be a string, right? It should always be a string. I'm not seeing a situation whereby it's not a string. It should always be a string. And then this other one can be a float. Yeah, this makes sense. Yeah, Daniel and Ashraf, thank you for confirming that you're enjoying the session. That's encouraging, actually. Yes, and yeah, and Ashraf, let's get to that hello world today. Then, of course, we have the union, where you can declare a variable of several types. Okay, so they say in Python 3.6 and above, including Python 3.10, you can use the union type from typing and put inside the square brackets the possible types to accept. Then they say in Python 3.10, there's a new syntax where you can put the possible types separated by a vertical bar. So let us look at Python 3.8. They're saying from typing import union. Okay, then they have a function called process item, which takes an item, but this item, okay, can be either an integer or a string. So union is used to annotate a parameter or a variable that can take several types. Okay, so it can be an integer or a string, which means if you pass like a float, you get some warning. Okay, in Python 3.10, yeah, this is now this is where it's the real benefit. Okay, we're just using this vertical bar. I used to call it a pipe. I don't know where I got that word from. I think it was when I was learning shell programming. Pipe. I still call it pipe. Because imagine saying pipe, then vertical bar. Pipe is just one word. Vertical bar, those are two words. Come on, I prefer saying pipe. Feel free to roast me. Yeah, so I think this is, too much. This other one looks neat and cleaner. Then they say in both cases, this means item can be an int or string, which is good. Then they're saying possibly none. They say you can declare a value you can declare that a value could have a type like string, but it could also be none. In Python 3.6 and above, including Python 3.10, you can declare it by importing and using optional from the typing module. Okay, but I'm actually now loving this section. These are actually the things which I had forgotten. I had forgotten about union. I had forgotten about something which can be possibly none. Okay, so we have to use optional, okay? Which means currently, I'm not sure about Python 3.12, but currently, including Python 3.12, we only have what optional for annotating something which can be empty. For example, name, this argument or parameter called name. It can be, someone can either give you their name or not, okay? That is why you see in this function, the first case they're handling is when the name exists. So you're saying if the name exists, by saying name is not none, you're saying, okay, then if the name exists and you've given me a name, meaning this variable is not empty, then we say, hey, name. Otherwise, because we have no name, we cannot print the name. We just say hello world. Yeah, this is good. Actually, now I now appreciate reading this part. Then they're saying using optional str instead of just str will let the editor help you detect errors where you could be assuming that a value is always str when it could actually be none too. Okay, so option something, okay, because they're saying something could be anything, is actually a shortcut for union something none. They are equivalent. This actually makes sense to me. I don't know if it makes sense to you, because union is used to mention if something can be anything, one of two types. Okay, so it can be that actual thing which is there, or when it's not there. And of course, option is what? A shorthand for that. Then they said this means that in Python 3.10, you can use something or none. Aha. Yes, this is what I wanted. Instead of having to use import, instead of saying from typing import optional, I can simply say the name can either be a string or none. And this is union, okay? This is union, so I don't need to do this. Cool stuff. Let me see, in Python 3.8, you'd have to do that. Python 3.8 above, another alternative. Wow, too much. Okay. So they're saying if you're using Python 3. A Python version below 3.10, here's a tip from a very subjective point of view. Subjective, take note of that. Avoid using optional sum type. Instead, use union, sum type, none. Then they're saying both are equivalent and underneath they are the same. But I would recommend union instead of optional because the word optional would seem to imply the value is optional. And it actually means it can't be none even if it's not optional and is still required. My brain is cooking. Yeah, I actually agree with this. So I think the guy says, I think union sum type, none is more explicit about what it means. It's just about the words and names, but those words can affect how you and your teammates think about the code. Yeah, that's why it matters how we write the variable names, okay? How we write the variable names, how we write the names of classes, functions, everything. It really matters. Then I give you an example, okay? With a function, then they're saying the parameter name is defined as optional, but it is not optional. You cannot call the function without the parameter. Yes, by the way. I agree. It's actually misleading, okay? Because if I read your code and I'm seeing optional, I can say hi. I call the function without putting in the variable. So I think they're just trying to explain this other statement here, up here, which we read. Okay. Then they're saying the name parameter is still required, not option, because it doesn't have a default value. Still, name accepts none as the value. Okay. So yeah, you can do this. Name equals to none. It will work because all it requires is a value, and none is still a value. Actually, none is a valid value in Python. And then exactly, Ashraf, small things make one a great developer. Then they're saying the good news is once you are on Python 3.10, you won't have to worry about that, as you will be able to simply use the pipe to define unions of types. Yes, it now makes sense to use union instead of optional. I don't know if, I think in the Python community, they should like vote. We should be allowed to vote. If like 90% of us agree we don't need optional, then it's removed from the typing module, okay? But even then, we don't need the typing module for this kind of stuff, which is really good, apart from those who are using older versions, of course, of Python. And of course, by the removing it would mean their code bases break. Okay, then they say, and then you won't have to worry about names like optional and union. Cool. Then they have generic types. They're saying these types take type parameters in square brackets. These types that take type parameters in square brackets are called generic types or generics. For example, we have Python 3.10 having list, tuple, set, dict. Then they have saying the same as with Python 8 from the typing module. Oh my god, what's happening to my English and tongue? Then they have the equivalents in Python 3.9 plus and Python 3.8 plus. Okay. So they're saying in Python 3.10, as an alternative to using the generics, union and optional, you can use the vertical bar to declare unions of types. That's a lot better and simpler. Yeah, I think they're just reinforcing their point. Then when we come here, they're saying classes as types. They're saying you can also declare a class as a type of a variable. Let's say you have a class person, okay? Then you have a function that says get person name, and it's getting one, and the argument or the parameter is a person, okay? So the class name will be the type. Yeah, which is cool. Yeah, really cool. Actually, if I do this, if I copy this, you'll see, and I paste it, you may think it is switchcraft. If I say dot, you see we have that variable name and everything that is associated with the class. Yeah, this is nice. I like this. Okay, we can go. Then then you can declare a variable to be type of person. Then of course you get editor support. Okay. Then they say, notice this means one person is an instance of the class person. It doesn't mean one person is the class called person. Yeah, but this is very key. Take note of this. It means one person, this variable, okay, is an instance of the class person. Okay. One person, this variable here, is not this class. Okay. But one person is an instance, because we can do like this, assuming you have, just to make sure we have understood this. And again, if I'm wrong, make sure you correct me in the chat. We have maybe the first person, say person A, okay, is equals to person. Okay, so this is the first person. Okay, I'll take advantage of autocomplete. Haven't finished that. Have the other person, okay, called do, like that. So if I say get person name, okay, and I call the function, we can have person A, okay, then person B. All right, okay, you see? So ideally, the argument we are taking here are instances of person, which means that at one point, one person will be person A. At another point, the argument will be the value of person B. But person A is not a class. Person B is not a class. They're simply instances of the person class. Yeah, I think that's pretty much that's it. Then I think we have come to the end of this. Before we go into some real hello world stuff. They say Pydantic model, Pydantic. Oh my God, how do you pronounce this stuff? Imagine biting your tongue live and not having a chance to edit it. That's how people can simply crop you and make edits, and you find yourself viral on social media for biting your tongue. Software developer bites his tongue live on camera. Okay, let's see this. Says Pydantic is a Python library to perform data validation. They say you can declare the shape of the data as classes with attributes. And each attribute has a type. Let's click on this link. Make sure we're not hallucinating. Okay, yeah. Looks like it's a real thing. Of course, I've heard of it. Let me not pretend like I've not heard of this thing. I've heard of it actually from the creator of Pydantic. Then let us say, let's read. Says you declare the shape of the data as classes with attributes, and each attribute has a type. Then you create an instance of that class with some values, and it will validate the values, convert them to the appropriate type, if that's the case, and give you an object. Yeah, this is good. This is cool. Think about it. You create an instance of a class, an object with the same values, and it will validate the values for you. Okay, so it is helping us skip a step of manual validation, and then says convert them to appropriate type if that's the case, and give you an object with all the data. This is cool. It says, and you get all the editor support with that resulting object. Okay, that's nice. Then they say an example from the official Pydantic docs. So Python 3.8. I think they're importing. Let me use 3.10 because it's what I'm going to use going forward. Okay. So they import datetime, they import base model from Pydantic, okay? Then they have a class which inherits from base model, and this class called user, which inherits from base model, has 3 public class attributes. They have an ID, which is an integer. Now, type annotations and type hints getting interesting. We have name, which is a string with a default value of John Doe. We have sign up TS, which is now unions are now making sense here, which can be a date time or none. And of course, the default value is none. Then they're saying friends is a list of integers. And of course, the default value is an empty list. Then they have a dictionary having external data with 3 keys. Okay, they have ID, sign up, TS, and friends. Okay, so a string, a date time string, and then a list. Then they're saying user equals to user external data, print user. Then they get that object. Okay, then they print user.id, they get that. Which is good. This is actually good. Then they're saying FastAPI is all based on Pydantic. Now this makes sense. This makes sense, guys. Do you see this? This makes sense actually. Okay, that now FastAPI is based on Pydantic, which is simply a tool that is built around us Python developers having annotations, okay, and helps us with validation. Now we're talking business here. I like this, okay? Then they say you'll see a lot more of this in practice in the tutorial user guide, okay? Then they say Pydantic has a special behavior when you use optional or union with a default value. You can read more, okay? Type hints with metadata annotations. Python also has a feature that allows putting additional metadata in these type hints using annotated. I'll go 3.9 plus. The same from typing import annotated. Then you say annotated. This is just metadata. You see, what I like about this is that, and this approach which I'm taking, by the time you're working with something called Pydantic, you actually understand what you're doing. You know what it maybe may not be able to do. Okay. So let's say Python itself doesn't do anything with this annotated. Okay. And for editors and other tools, the type is still str. This is very good to know. Okay. But you can use this space in annotated to provide FastAPI with additional metadata about how you want your application to behave. Okay. Then they're saying the most important thing to remember is that the first type parameter you pass to annotated is the actual type. Oh, actually, yeah. So which means this is simply a string. Okay, it's just a string. This actually means nothing. Okay, you're just creating a string. The rest is just metadata for other tools. Okay, like tools in your editor, tools, I don't know, whatever, linting tools or so on, whatever you want to benefit from that metadata. They're saying for now you just need to know that annotated exists and it's standard Python with that cool emoji. Later you will see how powerful it can be. Okay, then you're saying fast type hints in Python. They're saying FastAPI can take advantage of these type hints to do several things. With FastAPI, you can declare parameters with type hints, and you get editor support, which we have talked about. Type checks, we already know about that. And FastAPI uses the same declarations to define requirements from request parameters, query parameters, headers, bodies, dependencies, good, to convert data from the request to the required type. This is so cool. Validate data from each coming request, and saying generating automatic errors returned to the client when the data is invalid. This is very good, guys. Okay, of course, with other frameworks like Django REST framework, you can have this, but it's not really that automatic sometimes. Okay, but I want to see. Actually, my goal is now going to compare. I want to compare how this works to something like the default serializers you have in Django REST framework. Okay, then they say document the API using OpenAI. They're saying which is then used by automatic interactive documentation for user interfaces. Oh, this is actually good because in something like in the Django world, you need to actually set up this manually. Okay. Then they say this might all sound abstract. Don't worry. Excuse me. You'll see all this in action in the tutorial guide. The important thing is that by using standard Python types in a single space, instead of adding more classes, decorators, etc., FastAPI will do the work for you. Wow. Yeah, it now makes sense. Unbelievable. I can't imagine I've taken time to finish all this live. I think it's time now to go to the tutorial guide to see what's going on there. Before that, maybe let me check the chat. Okay, let me see. Yeah, Ashraf, I see your funny statement. It proves you're not human. You're human, not AI. Yes, Daniel, it's an annotation checker. STR is the type and the rest is external info. Yes, that's correct, Daniel. I think, Daniel, your comment is about the annotation. Sorry, sometimes when I'm concentrated here, my mind is not on the chat, but yeah, you're actually referring to this. STR is the actual type and the rest is just external info. For example, if I copied this, okay, I copy this and paste it here, okay, and I change this to int, okay, the type of annotated is actually int. This one is just information about this, which can be used by editors, maybe like for documentation or whatever. All right, so what is next? I think we should now go to the tutorial guide, okay? The other things I know which are important like concurrency and async await, but I think this is something I can look at in another session in another stream, after looking at some other things here. Because actually, if you come here to concurrency await, they're saying details about the async def syntax for operations and functions and some background about synchronous code, concurrency, and parallelism. I think it's a very good concept, and I think we shall go through this soon to understand what synchronous code. Actually, I see they have images here. Okay. Okay, so I need the hello world. Okay, let me go to this now tutorial user guide. Click here and go here to fast steps. Okay, so that I want to have some motivation. Maybe after going through some of this, then I can go back to understanding concurrency, or probably just do it in some other time, because I might think, like someone has said, I'm human and I'm not AI. Who was that? I think that was Ashraf. You may see my head becoming warm. You wonder what's going on. All right. I feel like now I'm getting somewhere. The real what I always tell myself when I'm coding, the real thing will be me now applying what I've understood. Okay, starting that project, and very soon I'll be telling you that the project which I want to build is something live that I want to build, and I want to put it on the market. Okay, I want to test it on the market. I don't want it to just be a side gig that I'm just going to build for GitHub and showing my friends. No, I want to make money from it. And yeah, who knows? Maybe I might hire one of you guys. All right, let's continue. Then they say the simplest FastAPI file could look like this. From FastAPI, import FastAPI. Oh, I've seen a comment from Ashraf saying when he said it proves I'm human and not AI, he said by biting my tongue, I prove that I am human and not AI. Wow. Yeah, actually, that's a sharp way of thinking. But what if I'm an AI pretending to be human and I'm biting my tongue, pretending to feel pain? Let's not get into that. Get into a rabbit hole of how do you prove someone is not an AI. All right, let's look into this. So they're saying the simplest FastAPI file could look like this. From FastAPI, import FastAPI. Then they are saying you create a variable called app because the FastAPI. Then you say app.get that. Then they're saying async def root return message. Copy that file, copy that to a main.py file. Okay, let me copy. I'm following instructions. Okay. So this is of course an issue. Who can guess? I think this is obvious. Okay. It's because I've not installed FastAPI. So I need to install FastAPI. And I feel this should have been like the first instruction here, probably. Or maybe because I missed, I think this part from Python types intro, I went simply to the tutorial guide. Probably there's something for installation, maybe in environment variables, in concurrency or virtual environments. Whatever. Let's continue. Then they're saying copy that to a file, main.py. Then they're saying run FastAPI dev main.py. Okay. Then they're saying in the output, there's a line with something like uvicon running on HTTP blah blah blah. That line shows the URL where your app is being served. Open your browser at, you will see the response as that. Okay. But we need, of course, we need to install FastAPI. Okay. We need to install it. And I guess it should be as simple as pip install FastAPI. If it's not, we shall Google again about how to do. Pip install FastAPI. Hey, by the way, guys, there's something I want maybe to use instead. Instead of using pip, there's actually a new popular tool in the Python community for doing these kind of things. It's called UV. Okay, it's the one I want to start using. Okay, and I don't know whether I installed it here. I think actually I installed it here. Okay, it's called UV. Yeah, it's much faster than pip. It's like a tool. Let's go to that website quickly. I say UV. Okay, or UV Python. It's the best thing to do. Okay, you're going to see what they say. An extremely fast Python package and project manager written in Rust. See, it is faster than Poetry, PDM, PipSync, etc. Okay, so I've already installed it. All I just need to do is UV init. Okay, maybe I'll probably do this when we are creating our project. Yeah, but I just want to let you know, but we shall use it soon. Okay, let me just install pip install FastAPI for now. Okay, we are done with that. So this should resolve. Okay, well, I guess I need to choose the virtual environment. Okay, there's a command for that. Okay, was it? There's a way you can actually do this in VS Code. Control Shift P, Control Command Shift. Yes, that's what I wanted. So I select the Python interpreter. Yeah, this is what I want. Yes, and the warning has disappeared. So we have FastAPI. So they are saying we run the command FastAPI dev main.py. So I guess dev means development. Okay, so I'll say FastAPI dev main.py. But of course, when we are building the project, we need to use that UV package. I've tested it before and it's really cool. I don't know how I forgot, but I should have done that from the beginning when creating this module. So when we run this, says to use FastAPI command, please install FastAPI standard. Okay, look at that. Looks like by me just doing pip install FastAPI, I was getting crazy. Let's follow instructions, okay? So the error message is always the solution to issues. Okay, that's really taking some time. Clear the screen. Let's run that command again. FastAPI dev main.py. Okay, finally, I've learned something. So it's not nothing is obvious that I'll just say pip install FastAPI because I think this FastAPI required. Interesting. All right, so say UVCon running on this port. Okay, so let's copy and go to that. And there we are. Hello world. Okay, click pretty print. So guys, this is my API. Pay to access it. Pay to access it. All right, let's continue the documentation. Let's say what do we need? Okay, they say you'll see the message, okay, which we have seen. Then you're saying interactive API docs. Now go to, let me click on this link, which is here. Nice. I like this. You see, automatic documentation. Not like in the Django world where you have to now install Swagger, configure, and then you have a running stomach and you have to decide whether to first finish that or to. Yeah, but this is actually cool. So look at this. So we have the method is get to the root, no parameters, the response, yeah, 200, description successful response, it returns JSON, okay, and gives us a string. It has no associated links. If I say try it out, okay, then execute, you see we even get a sample using curl. We're given the request URL and the server response. The code is 200. The response body is that JSON string, and the response headers. We have content length, content type, the date, and the server. Yeah, pretty good. I think I love this. All right, so I think we have some progress. Let's continue. Then they're saying they have alternative API docs. And they're saying, and now go to this. So let me click. Okay. Yeah. So this is now using Redoc, which is nice. Okay. Saying the root API. And of course, you can even download the specification from OpenAPI. If I expand that, says the response schema, any application JSON. If I come here, see get, even they show you the URL, the response samples. Okay. If I click on this, this is nice. I like this. This is cool. Okay. If I click on this again, I don't know why, and I make this smaller and maybe expand it. I want to see something. Oh yeah, this actually is how it's supposed to look like. Yeah, this is cool. This is cool. So let's go back, scroll, and they're saying Open API. They're explaining. It's saying FastAPI generates a schema with all your API, using the Open API standard for defining APIs. A schema is a definition or description of something, not the code that implements it, but just an abstract description. Okay. Someone says, Lena says, we know you. You cannot be an AI. Your chat tells it all. Ah, come on, bro. You got me. You're trying to say I'm like this type of programmers who use one type of shirt. You find someone, he's a programmer. The guy earns money, but he goes and buys maroon or red shirts only, 10 of them. Okay. Actually, let me tell you, if you say you know this shirt, that is actually evidence that I could be an AI. because then a real human changes the types of clothes. If he's buying clothes, he'll not buy 10 shirts which are the same color. Okay, he will buy 10 shirts different colors. Okay, that is actually proof that I could be an AI. Ashraf says, great work through, much appreciated, hands-on project. Thanks, Nehemiah. Thank you for that. That's encouraging. Yeah, so let's continue in. They're saying a schema is a definition or description of something, not the code that implements it, but just an abstract description. Okay, so a definition of something. In an API schema, in this case, OpenAPI is a specification that dictates how to define the schema. Okay, sort of like rules. Okay, this schema definition includes your API path and the possible parameters they take. Data schema, the term schema might also refer to the shape of some data like JSON content. In that case, it would mean the JSON attributes and the data types they have. Then they're saying OpenAI and JSON schema. See, OpenAI defines an API schema. Of course, we know what an API schema is. The specification that dictates how to define a schema of your API. Okay. So simply we think about a description. Okay, description of an API in general terms. That's the simple. In layman's language, is a description of our API. Nothing complex than that. Correct me if I'm wrong, by the way. But I think that's what it is. The description of your API. So they're saying OpenAI defines an API schema for your API, and that schema includes definitions or schemas of the data sent and received by your API using JSON schema and the standard for JSON data schema. Simply, it explains a description of the information that is given to your API and the information that your API gives to people who are using it. Then they say check OpenAPI.json. They say if you're curious about how the raw OpenAPI schema looks like, FastAPI automatically generates a JSON schema with the description of your API. You can see it directly at this. Just click. Okay. If I click on pretty, there it is. Okay. Good to know that it exists. Okay. Then it says it will show you a JSON starting something like this, which of course we are seeing. Okay. OpenAPI version, the info, the title, the version, and I'm guessing all this can be changed. Okay. The path, the method, okay, it is get, etc. The responses, the status code, the description, the content type, etc. So they're saying, what is OpenAPI for? They're saying the OpenAPI schema is what powers the two interactive documentation systems included. And there are dozens of alternatives, all based on OpenAPI. You could easily add any of those alternatives to your application built with FastAPI. Then they're saying you could also use it to generate code automatically for clients that communicate with your API. For example, front-end, mobile, or IoT applications. Okay, because IoT like for Internet of Things. Okay, that's the abbreviation. IoT for Internet of Things. Okay, yeah, I think that's the goal of OpenAPI schema. For those of you who had ALX, you remember us looking at this using Django. They were still interactive. Okay, says is what powers the two interactive documentation systems. As simple as that. Then now, I'm trying to read this again to make sure I've understood it. It's in the OpenAPI schema is what powers the two interactive documentation systems included, of course, the Redoc and Swagger. Then they're saying there are dozens of alternatives, all based on OpenAPI. You could easily add any of those alternatives to your application built with FastAPI, meaning if what they have does not work for you, it's plug and play. You can plug in something else, okay, and use it to generate code automatically for your clients to communicate with your API, which is cool. And of course, APIs are meant for clients like front ends and mobile applications or IoT applications. Then they have here a quick recap. They're saying the first step from FastAPI import FastAPI. Okay. Then of course we import the app. Then you say app.get, means the get method. Okay. then you specify the path. This means the route, okay? So I'm sure so I'm guessing, okay? Let's guess this. You say app dot p. You see, we have already patch, we have post, we have put, okay? And of course, we're going to look at these in detail. But for now, we have what? Get, and this is the path, okay? Then after you define a function. Function is called route, okay? And takes no parameters, but is async. Now, to understand this async, we shall need to read this on concurrency. Of course, me being in the field for some time, I have a very broad idea what this means, okay? But in the next session, we're going to look at this documentation, concurrency, async, and await to get deeper and understand what is actually going on. And of course, like when you understand how things work, you'll be able to use AI to give you way faster code completion and give AI real good prompts, okay? Quality prompts. All right, then they're saying FastAPI is a Python class that provides all the functionality to your API. So this line of code, okay? Then they have their technical details. They're saying FastAPI is a class that inherits directly from Starlet. So you can use all the Starlet functionality with FastAPI too. It's technical, but I think probably we don't need it. This is something maybe we can look at later, maybe at an advanced level. We're now going into maybe how FastAPI works, but I don't think we actually need it, but it's good to know. And I think one time I need to look at it in a live stream. And then they say step 2, create a FastAPI instance. Then they're saying from FastAPI, import FastAPI, okay? And of course, this line creates the instance, okay? You import FastAPI, then create an instance, okay? Then they're saying here, the app variable will be an instance of the class FastAPI. I think we know all this, okay? That to create an instance, you simply use the class name, parentheses, and instantiate using into a variable. And we know this, okay? Basic OOP. And they said this will be the main point of interaction to create all your API. Then they're saying step 3, create a path operation. They're saying path here refers to the last part of the URL starting from the first slash. Okay. So if I go back to this, okay. So after the domain, okay, in my case, if I expand this, the domain is, this is not working the way I want. Let's go back here. Okay. This from HTTPS to .com, okay, is like the whole, let's say, domain, okay, the protocol plus your domain, okay. But what path defines is the part that starts from here after com, from this first slash, okay, is what they're referring to here. Okay, after the .com, after the domain, okay, in your path, your definitions in this string are after the domain. Have that in mind. And that's what they're trying to say here, okay? So they're saying, so in a URL like https example.com item/foo, the path would be items/foo. So like in our case, we would have to just add here items/foo. So the other part like https example.com is added, of course, automatically by FastAPI. Have you seen something? Did you see that auto refresh that happened when I added code and saved? I like that. That was really fast, actually. It restarted the whole thing. It's very nice. Then they're saying info. A path is also commonly called an endpoint or a route. And I think we know this. So ideally, I have one route or one endpoint. While building an API, the path is the main way to separate constants and resources. Okay. In the saying operation. The saying operation here refers to one of the HTTP methods, one of post, get, put, delete, and the more exotic ones like options, head, patch, trace. And then they're saying in the HTTP protocol, you can communicate to each path using one or more of these methods. Okay. And the operation is this part, okay? Here, get. In our case, it is get, but we can change it to put or however we like. Then they're saying when building APIs, you normally use these specific HTTP methods to perform a specific action. Normally, you use post to create data, get to read data, put to update data, delete to delete data. So in OpenAPI, each of the HTTP methods is called an operation. Good terminology. So they're saying we are going to call them operations too, because in OpenAPI, they are called operations. And of course, we know all this. We know the CRUD operations. Then they say define a path operation decorator, which is this line of code. Okay. So in the syntax, when you say at, okay, we are decorating. Okay. Remember those who know Django, when you say at login underscore required, you're decorating your function. Okay. But in this case, what we are doing, we are decorating it with app, like that. Come on, app, like that. Then of course you complete by saying app.get. Okay. Then they're saying the app tells FastAPI that the function right below is in charge of handling requests that go to the path that, to this path, which is of course the root. Okay, in this case. Then they are saying using a get operation. So if I wanted to change it to maybe slash YouTube, it would look like that. So in this case, it will mean if app.get is telling FastAPI that this function called root is responsible for handling all requests that go to slash YouTube using a get operation. I see how this is, how simple it is. App.get tells FastAPI that the path YouTube is responsible for handling all requests. I mean, app.get is telling FastAPI that this function here below is responsible for all requests that go to slash YouTube, this path or this endpoint or this route. Then they have an if on a decorator. They're saying that at something syntax in Python is called a decorator, like we already know. You put it on top of a function, like a pretty decorative hat. I guess that's where the term came from. A decorator takes the function below and does something with it. In our case, this decorator tells FastAPI that the function below corresponds to the path / with an operation get. It is the path operation decorator. Cool. So this is a path operation decorator. Interesting. Then they say you can use other operations. There's app.post, app.put for updating, app.delete for deleting, app.options, .head, .patch, .trace. And these are what they're calling the more exotic ones. Then they have here a tip saying you are free to use each operation as you wish. FastAPI does not enforce any specific meaning. They're saying the information here is presented as a guideline, not a requirement. For example, when using GraphQL, you can normally perform all the actions using only post operations. Again, we're going to look at GraphQL very soon. Then they're saying step 4, define the path operation function. This is our path operation function. The path is the string, the /. The operation is get. Then the function is the function below the decorator, below app.get, this. So they're referring to this line, okay, in their case. Then they're saying this is a Python function. It will be called by FastAPI whenever it receives a request to the URL / using a get operation. In this case, it is an async function. Okay. So if I remove this with this keyword async, it is not an async function. Okay. If I put async back, come on, Control Z, this now becomes an async function. Okay. And again, in the next stream, we're going to look at concurrency, async await in detail to understand it. Then they say you can also define it as a normal function instead of async def, which you have just done. Okay. Then they're saying if you don't know the difference, check async in a hurry. That is something we're going to look at, like I've said. Then they're saying step 5, return the content. In our case, we have of course done that because we copied their code. They're saying you can return a dictionary, a list, singular values as str, int, etc. You can also return Pydantic models. You'll see more about that later. So in a future live stream, we're also going to go into that. Then they're saying that there are many objects and models that will be automatically converted to JSON, including ORMs. Nice. Try using your favorite ones. It's highly probable that they are already supported. So the recap is import FastAPI, create an app instance, create a path operation decorator like app.get, define a path operation function, for example, def route, run the development server using FastAPI dev. Let me try something. Imagine I was creating a login function, okay? First, I import FastAPI, create a FastAPI instance, okay? Then create a path operation decorator. So I'll say at app.post okay, let me say .get. Let me say I'm getting users, okay? .get, okay? In my case, it will be /users. Then after that, this is what they call a path operation decorator. Okay. Next, I need to create a path operation function below, which is just a Python function. They say define a function called get_users. Okay, like that. Then I can return in users. Okay, which can be of course a dictionary. I want to use AI dictionary whose key is users. Then I have what? A list of users, but now it's empty for now. So this is a path operation decoration, okay, or decorator, and then this is a path operation function. Big terms, but you know, and by now, of course, now you know what they mean. And of course, right now it's not async, but we can make it async. To understand this, we need to go to that part of the documentation, the second part. Yeah, so I think this is it. I don't know how you guys have found this, but I've really liked this. So the next part in the tutorial is going to talk about path parameters. I think that's when they'll even go into types and blah blah. Yeah, but it would be very nice to go into that. But next up, I don't have to finish this. I just wanted to look at the first steps today. But now what I want to go next to is this part of concurrency and look at concurrency in depth. Yeah, so if you like this, yeah, share it with friends out there. And let's take this on an interesting journey. I'm going to, where is this? Is my network still on? Anyone having any question concerning this walkthrough? Feel like I need a break. Instead of probably having a break, I think let's end it here. I see Ashraf says they found it very good. This is an eye opener. I really appreciate this. Encourages me to do this again. Linus says, so far everything is good. Thank you for the session. I've learned the basics that will facilitate me to dive deeper into FastAPI. Daniel says they've had an amazing session. I appreciate. So I think next up, the goal is to understand concurrency. And this is the thing I've had by the Python FastAPI developers talking about FastAPI. Their argument why it beats things like Flask and the most popular Django thing is this topic of concurrency and async wait. So yeah, join me in the next stream. I think probably I should have it tomorrow because I'm thinking if I'm to learn something, I need to be consistent with it every day. So I think probably on a weekend like now, I can do it in the morning hours. Then probably on a day like tomorrow, then on working days, I can have it at night. So I'm thinking probably 9 p.m. To maybe 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. East African time. I don't know what you guys think, but that's what is on my mind. So probably, yeah, we shall have it tomorrow to look at concurrence and async anyway, so that we have this consistent ride of learning into something, so that by the end of the month, there's a difference, okay, in what we have. So yeah, go and look at what we have looked at. Yeah, and I appreciate you joining. So yeah, I'll be ending the stream. See you in the next one. Thank you.